highway, we have 12 committee members on so far that I've counted.
Okay, that is half since we don't yet have a Plant City member. But we would need one more for a quorum, so we'll be waiting on that next one. I do know, Mr. Shirk, that we have one person, Mr. Lamarca, for public comments once we get there.
Okay.
But, you may call the meeting to order when you're ready.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and since we won't be voting on anything, we can take public comment and we can start the review process. So let's get it on.
Hey, Wade,
right,
I don't know if you
Mr.
counted me, but Linda Crescentini just joined.
Okay, good. Then we got our quorum.
Great. Then, Mr. Lamarca, if you're ready, I will see if I can allow you to speak. There we go. You should be unmuted, Mr. Lamarca, whenever you're ready.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I had something completely different planned. My name is Mike Lamarca, 33598. Had something completely different planned, but something happened over the weekend and changed that. In January, there was a study or report released in front of BPAC about Fletcher Avenue and the complete streets changes that were made. So I'd like to talk about that. Fletcher Ave, Coffin Corner and Right Hook. So the county MPO and Vision Zero staff, with the help from Cutter and Bike Walk Tampa Bay, have told us how much better Fletcher Ave is since the 2015 makeover. I disagree, and their data and design proves it. Coffin Corner is the term used for an intersection where the straight bike lane is to the right of a travel lane, where a vehicle has to cross that bike lane to turn right. The straight moving cyclist gets right hooked by the motorist. So since Fletcher is a very dense, highly commercial roadway with 6 to 10 roadway connections per block, the county, by adding a bike lane instead of a Sharrow when they did that, they effectively turned the entirety of Fletcher Avenue into a Coffin Corner for cyclists. The data shows it. We've got more pedestrian and cyclist crashes after completion of this project than before. There's less crosswalk compliance after this completion of this project than before. These crashes, the crashes that have happened have been less severe, which has probably been accomplished with the speed limit signs. They dropped the speed limit from 45 to 35 and could have been done by doing just that with the signs and enforcement alone, and not with $5 million worth of other improvements that have actually made that road worse for cyclists and pedestrians. I would ask that BPAC sends a recommendation to Vision Zero, Public Works, Cutter, and the MP to stop promoting this as an improvement, and that they fix this fatal flaw by the end of this year. That they, the MPO, Vision Zero, and Public Works, have to admit to their oversight by putting that bike lane down there with so many crosscuts to the road. They need to improve it. They need to fix it. I'd also ask that all other improvements be reviewed by someone that actually cycles instead of somebody sitting behind a desk. One of these improvements just finished at Balm River View and Big Bend Road. It also leaves a cyclist vulnerable as a squeeze where the county did not do the upgrade with cycling improvements in mind. And now it puts the cyclists, as they go through that intersection, in a point where they will get hit. So the county is building infrastructure that puts cyclists at risk, and this needs to end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lamarca.
I will mute myself back.
Okay. My comment on that is a lot of the improvements are focused on pedestrian safety as opposed to just bicycling safety.
Do not hear any audio from anyone.
Say again? I'm hearing audio from Mr. Lamarca.
Yes, can you hear me, Mr. Shirk? This is Wade.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Can you hear me, obviously?
Yes, sir. I'm wondering if maybe Sally, can you raise your hand if you can hear us? Okay. I know that at least the panelists can hear us. Let me just see what we can do. Okay, well, if anybody is unable to hear, if they could just write in the chat or the questions, and we'll see if we can get it worked out. Otherwise, I think we can move on.
Okay, now that everybody knows that I have a ceiling fan, I just wanted to know, my question is regarding the impact of the improvements on pedestrian safety, which a lot of the improvements like the RFBs, et cetera, were focused more on protecting mid-block crossings for pedestrians as opposed to bicycle safety. And the traffic calming was a byproduct that was going to enhance bicycling safety. Any comments from anybody on the statistics involved?
Jim, this is Wade. The rate of severe and fatal injuries was down significantly. There was an increase, I believe, by something like 32 to 34 overall crashes, and there was an increase in, I believe, both bicycle and pedestrian crashes, although there was an increase in the volume of cyclists and pedestrians from the first part of the study to the second part. So ultimately, the data for those years showed that the rates went down, but I'm happy to continue to report back on those items, and you know, we'll continue to look at how those improvements shape up. I believe the study was on 2 or 3 years of data, and we will continue to look at them, and if adjustments need to be made, those can certainly be considered. I believe in the chat, I just want to note that Mr. Lamarca says crosswalk compliance went down from 76 to 72% in the before and after that. But I will hold those numbers as well.
Okay, but to me, the reduction in severity is a good product of the work that was done there. I'd be interested in comments by other committee members.
Jim, this is John. Is it okay if I make a comment?
Certainly.
Yeah, do we have the speed data too? Was there a speed reduction that was caused because of a lot of the friction treatment by those RFBs would also help create a slower traffic volume on the roadway. So that's another indicator for the reduction in serious injury and fatalities.
Wade, do you have data on the average speed reduction?
There was a speed reduction, and all of those improvements were part of the same project. Let me see if I can just pull up the pages from that project. 1 second.
And just a comment there, I know it's easy to say, let's just go lower the speed limit. But you actually see a increase in crashes if there's not other things done to help lower the speed. The differential is what actually causes an increase in the severity of crashes. So these type of treatments, which overall lower the speed of the roadway, will have an added benefit to the overall corridor.
So just to go through the crash analysis here a little bit, and here, let me zoom in a little bit so that we can see that. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get rid of this thing. So the rate of crashes total declined slightly, although you can see there was an increase in pedestrian and bicyclist crashes. The severity of crashes was down significantly then. And just to break those down a little bit more, the volumes were up by about 13%. The injuries were non-incapacitating down by 10%, incapacitating down by 18%, and fatalities by 50%.
Good. Yeah, That's what I recall, and I thought I recall, and it seems that's a positive outcome. Maybe we could do something about the right hooking, such as painting the bike lanes as opposed to just marking them, putting up batons, although it's kind of hard to put batons in an intersection. If we could make green boxes, I don't know. Perhaps somebody at MPO could come up with an add-on, if we could think of something.
It's certainly something that we will continue to look at, but a lot of these interventions, mid-block crossings, lowering the speed limit, narrowing the lanes as we go along with that are really a lot of the interventions that we're able to make, and they are effective. And there are studies and crash mitigation factors that go along with these treatments that have been heavily evaluated. And we are retrofitting some of our older roads. We are working with an older system, and it takes time, and it's going to take more time to really continue to bring these numbers down. But I know that we're certainly unhappy about Mr. LaMarca's crash, and we'll continue to look at it. And I've been keeping an eye out on the crash management database since I heard about it, although I have not seen the report pop up yet.
Speaking of retrofitting, are we going to talk about Florabraska this afternoon?
If you would like to bring it up under members' interests or old and new business, I did not have anything on the agenda for that. But,
okay. Yeah, perhaps we'll bring it up under members' interest. But I just wanted to note it that there's going to be it's going to become more bike ped friendly. Shall we? Anyway. What's the next item on the agenda? I can't read it.
Sorry, Mr. Shirk, approval of minutes.
Isn't it members' interest?
Excuse me, you are correct. Members' interests and then approval of minutes.
Okay. Members' interests, please. I'll go last. Well, I guess I'll go first then. My interest is I understand that Florabraska is being redone to go from 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction, to 3 lanes with a turn lane, and but with bike lanes on either side. And I'm just hoping that I don't think of Florabraska as being a seriously problematic street. I'm wondering how it got prioritized. Any ideas?
Jim, this is Wade. I thought there was a design project for Florabraska, but I'm not sure the details. I wonder if anybody from the city is on and has any thoughts on that.
If not, we could get in touch with Ms. Duncan's group and report back to the next meeting.
Yes, I'll certainly look into it. I thought there was a discussion of, as you described, a design similar to Palm Avenue, where it is the center turn lane, bike lanes, and 1 vehicular lane in either direction. But I'll look into that and get back to you all.
Okay.
Jim, I'd like to say something. I'm sorry I should have spoken before you. This is Sally.
Oh, yes, Sally.
Tell me when.
Oh,
now. Okay, I just wanted to mention that as you may know, the lights have gone up on 731 on Bayshore, at Rome and at Euclid, and there's been a lot of if anybody gets any of those next door digests that go in your neighborhood, a bunch of people are complaining about it because they think it's terrible. And I'm just passing that information along. A couple of them are really upset that there's still the crosswalk and the light 1 block away, and they think that's really poor planning. I don't know whether that crosswalk is going to continue to be there now that there's a light. Wade, maybe you know or can find out. I figure it's just grumbling. There's always going to be grumbling. You put a light, you put a stop, you whatever. But there have been a number of people that have been upset about it. You can't win.
Oh.
That's all. I just wanted to make that statement because I happen to see, I live in the neighborhood. I'm glad the light's up. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that, I don't know how you respond when you get people grumbling, or maybe they just like to grumble on the neighborhood news.
Well, when they start calling city councilmen and people like that, and getting political about it, then we'll start probably having to get engaged. But right now, I'm just glad that they went up.
Well, I'm not suggesting that we should do anything. This is just an FYI.
Okay.
Good. And I don't know if like I said, the crosswalk at Dakota, which is 1 block before Rome, whether that's going to continue there or whether now that there's this other, that there's this stoplight, whether it's even still needed. I don't know. Would anybody know?
I can report back on that, Sally.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Hey, this is Steven with the city. Sorry, I missed that last note. I was trying to unmute, but no, we are not planning on removing the crosswalk adjacent to Rome at this time.
Okay. I'm not saying it should be. I'm just saying, that's part of the grumbling.
Yeah, not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other members' interest? So, quick question regarding the minutes. In looking at the list of attendees, I see that Jonathan Forbes is listed as an attendee, and as I recall, he was out of town.
We can make that correction. I did have one other correction from Mr. Rank, which I've also made, and I can show you what that is. It was just the title or the, it's the county's community infrastructure planning department, and we had something different before, so I've already made that change, if you all accept it.
Sounds good.
Fine.
Okay. Can we, somebody want to move to accept the minutes as modified?
I move to accept the minutes as modified.
I second.
Anybody opposed? Are we good to go, Wade?
Yes, sir. Hearing no opposition, the minutes are considered passed, and we do not have any action items, so we can move on to status report next. I guess we can start with the section 4 aesthetics, and I will get Mr. Henry's presentation.
Who was that?
Apologies, that is a dog at my house.
Okay.
Every house should have, that's a basic requirement for home offices, I think.
That should have a what?
The pooch.
I have a cat. Does that count?
I don't have either, but.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Mr. Henry, are you ready? Alex?
Yeah, hey Wade, this is Alex. It's actually going to be Elaine Elise, I believe. I don't see her on the list of presentees here, but maybe she's just not listed as a panelist.
Apologies, she should be on.
Hello? Oh. Actually, okay, I apologize. The presentation is in two parts, and Mark Cuddy is supposed to be speaking first, Alex. So sorry about that. I'm covering the bike ped stuff, and he's covering the aesthetics. So can Mark be on speaker right now?
Yep, I'm unmuted. Thank you. Everyone can hear me?
Yep.
Good. All right, well, then I'll start on my part. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for letting us present this. Just to start off, since I will guess since I don't have control over the exact slide, I'll just say go ahead and next slide and we can move forward. But this is to present the hardscape concepts that we're presenting for some of the interchanges below I-275 in the West Shore area and heading out towards the causeway. So you can go ahead and next slide. What we're seeing here is just a quick oversight of the 5 locations we're looking at. We're doing a gateway aesthetic treatment out on the causeway out as you approach the water. We're doing some more treatment under I-275 at the North Rio Street. And then we're also doing Occident, West Shore, and Trask as well for these locations. Next slide. The process is long and full of meetings. We try to get everybody's involvement, and what we're currently working on right now is we're in the first round of 3 reviewing the concepts. So what you're going to be seeing here is part of that first round of development. And when we start to try to develop ideas and areas of opportunities of what we want to do and where we can do it at these locations. And then what you're kind of seeing on the board there is just some inspirational items that kind of help us move along and what we can apply the aesthetics with. Next slide. First board here is the Howard Franklin Causeway on the east side as you're leaving Tampa or approaching Tampa, depending on your direction. And we're looking at 2 locations, one on either side of the seawall, and the other one being a more solid monumental item that sits off to the side in the water a little. Now, exact location and exact design is still to be determined. We're still kind of laying out the guidelines of what all this is supposed to be. So don't take any of this for literal. This is all just conceptual. And as you can see, we've developed some different views and different versions of the concepts to kind of help work our way through and what it could and it might look like in scale and size. Next slide. Oh, sorry. There's a blow up of some of the images there. And you also see in the previously on the board there that was we're also incorporating and acknowledging what they're doing for the aesthetics on the Howard Franklin as well. So we're not completely ignoring them. Here we have Rio Street, and you can go ahead and click through that slowly. And again, we're looking at different ways of aesthetically treating the MSE walls, the sidewalks, the piers, if any, maybe doing a standalone screen structure underneath and trying different things with the way the roads are going with and how the pedestrian and how it's connected to the trails. Also making observation for public art opportunity. We show different MSE wall patterns and different ideas that we can do that might be public art or a static installation that maybe just expresses color or something else underneath the overpass. And then we also try to address this all with lighting as well as a common theme throughout all these aesthetic treatments. And just this one is, no, go ahead, you're good. Next location is Occident Street, where we have a roundabout to include. And we can go ahead and hit the next slide on that one. And again, we treat part of the sidewalk. We try to focus this one on being a little bit more pedestrian scale since the vehicular traffic was slower and lower count we expect it to be. So we try to scale things down for this. We try to involve the roundabout, again, marking an area of public art opportunity. In this concept, we've got the screening, type of graphic screening, and the next one we just focus on specialty MSC walls and where we can highlight and access or apply those to the area. And then some 3D sketches to kind of give a sense of scale of what's going on. And then the idea of playing with 3D MSC walls. So we do little sketches and 3D models for that as well. Next location is West Shore here. A little bit more vehicular traffic, more pedestrian traffic. So we try to want to work on a bigger space. We've looked at different sidewalk patterns and treatments. Go ahead and hit the next slide. So again, we have graphic screening. And you can see on the concept boards here that they're a little bit more elaborate. Next one. And here we're talking about some freestanding structures combined with some specialty MSC walls, kind of bookending West Shore as you're driving through, allowing this to be more of the center of the West Shore district area, kind of like an icon marker. Next slide. And again, some 3D sketches, some with nighttime, just kind of emulate what lighting might look like. And one more. And then there we have some 3D sketches of the tower idea of freestanding structure off to the side. Something that people can interact with or walk underneath, walk around, or ride their bikes around as they come through on the trail or along the sidewalk along West Shore. And then lastly here we have Trask, where we have a little bit more piers from the roadway as an open structure underneath. So we'll be looking at treating those piers aesthetically as well, and they'll carry on over to the West Shore area. Again, the ground cover locations where the MSC wall is, or not ground cover, the graphic screening. And next slide, please. There we go. Oh, came underneath. That one is for the MSC wall and where we're treating that for any specialty MSC walls. Again, we've tried, we've messed around with different types of sidewalk patterns throughout. And the idea is that if people like one pattern in one location, but they like it in all the locations, we can certainly look at doing that. And we're not trying to say that this is specifically only for Trask or only for Occident or only for West Shore. That we have lots of ideas and lots of things we're trying to get out there. So we're trying to put as much down on paper on these concept boards for people to react to and give feedback on. Next one. Here we looked at some different pier treatments, what we can do where we're not totally completely different from the standard pier treatment that's being done, and just kind of enhance it and make it a little bit more unique to the area. And then one more slide. And then we did some 3D modeling there just to kind of see what it would quickly look like underneath. Okay, next slide. So some of the things that we have are some special design opportunities. And this board pretty much covers it nicely. We're looking at doing a unifying theme between Occident, West Shore, and Trask. So that doesn't feel like it's three separate areas, that they can kind of feel, even though they're thousands of feet apart or hundreds of feet apart between each other. So we've got a unifying theme that we're looking into. We're looking at doing repeating wall structures up above, so that as you're driving along 275, that you can see these items as you go through the area, that all these aesthetics are not just for the people on the surface roads, but they are for people driving through on the 275 up above as well. And then we have also key locations of MSC walls that we can treat kind of like a big broad face, open palette, if you will, of spaces that you can use that, along the trail or along underneath the overpass that leaves opportunities for some large scale aesthetic treatment, be it public art or just simple color or who knows what, but we're at least alerting everyone to the possibilities. And I think that's it in a nutshell. We can briefly quickly click through these. These are just some of the samples of materials and other items that we're looking into that could be applied to multiple of these locations. And now it's off to Elaine. Is Elaine muted again?
Okay.
There she is.
I am sorry, I'm having to listen on my phone and talk on my speaker for some reason. So I apologize. Are you guys hearing a major echo?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. I don't know who's doing the clicker, but I'm going to stay. If you understand what I'm talking about, it'd be nice if you could move the mouse around so you could, yeah, thank
Elaine,
you. Okay, so
yes,
this
I can
is to
happily.
orient you, and this is where we're coming in from the Howard Franklin Bridge Trail on the west-hand side of the graphic. And then coming up Rio, you have the option as you come into Rio to either go south. I'm just giving you an overview. We're going to get into details in a minute. You have the option of going south, which or else north. And if you go north up Rio Street, that brings you to the Cypress Street project that the city had a while ago, that they put in the 10-foot wide sidewalk and underneath State Road 60 and then down the frontage road and tied into Lemon Street over to Occident. And then we have the new Occident interchange, and then coming south underneath I-275, and then from I-275 over to Hesperides. So that is section 4 for the bike ped connectivity that we're looking at. There was a commitment made as part of the supplemental environmental impact statement that we said that we were going to be trying to connect all the different gaps that we have. So what I wanted to do was to show you all the next slides are detail slides, but I'm trying to orient you in terms of where you are. So we're going to start just like I just talked through from the west side of the Howard Franklin Bridge and move through the area. Okay, so next slide, please. So this is oriented where north is to the right, unfortunately. So at where you see the purple line at the top and the red line, that is actually right where underneath where the word Kennedy is. That is where you're coming in from the Howard Franklin Bridge Trail. And so that is the connection right there. So you're coming, you have the ability at that point to go south and go through the interchange and come down to Kennedy and Hoover, the signalized intersection down there, or you can go north and you're going up Rio Street toward the Cypress Point Park. Next slide, please.
And parenthetically.
So this would continue on, and this comes up to the Cypress Point Park. And at that point, it's my understanding, I haven't sat in the meetings, but it's my understanding the city of Tampa is going to be making the decision on how they get through the Cypress Point Park, whether they tie into one of the existing trails or put in a new trail or they have it adjacent to the roadway. But the intent is to connect up to, again, that 10-foot wide sidewalk that the city had already installed along Cypress. Now, again, this is also facing, the north arrow is facing to the right. So at the very bottom corner of this slide is actually State Road 60. So we're going to go to the next slide and we're going to reorient ourselves. So next slide, this is State Road 60 in Cypress. So you come under here with the 10-foot wide sidewalk remains. Currently today, there are sharrows out there and as part of the project, and there's a 5 and sometimes 6 foot wide sidewalk. So this whole area will be replaced in kind. So it will be the same as the existing, even though the area will be widened, it's going to be replaced. So you'll still have a sharrow out there, and you'll still have the 6 foot wide sidewalk, and then the sharrow all the way down Lemon Street. Next slide, please. Okay, so coming down Lemon Street, it's sharrows all the way until you get to the Occident area. This is the new roundabout that Mark showed. And when you get around the roundabout, you can see that the line width gets a little bit thicker. Obviously, it's intended to be a wider sidewalk around that area. But the intent is to show the connectivity that we're trying to go north to tie into the existing sidewalk, which is the yellow dots, and then also pick up from the Lemon Street existing sidewalk. And all of that the trail would come around down through Occident, which is that new underpass area. And then we would be coming from Occident over to West Shore, again, within the DOT's right of way, and the trail over to West Shore. So next slide. And you can see that we come from West Shore over to Trask, and then Trask to Hesperdes. And the bright blue line represents the trail that the DOT constructed as part of the I-275 design build project back in 2016. So we're tying into that existing path that's already there. Next slide, please. And this is the continuation of that trail that we built in 2016 along Carmen, up Lois, underneath Lois, and then off to the right. And that trail goes all the way out to Church, which is 1 block west of Del Mabry, for any of you guys that may not be familiar with this. Next slide. This is just to show you that Trask Street, as it's going to be opened, I just wanted to make sure that we were showing that we have trail connectivity or wide sidewalks that go underneath the interstate that would tie over to the future multimodal center. Next slide. Okay, so that was a very quick overview just to show you guys that this is a first cut of what our goal was of providing connectivity coming off the Howard Franklin Bridge and trying to fill the gaps so that we have wide sidewalks, trails, and utilizing some of the existing areas with sharrows like we have currently right now on Lemon, to provide that connectivity over to the trail that we already have to get us down to Church. So we're little by little, we're trying to fill this, but this is our very first cut. It's an iterative process. We're working with the designers, and as they identify, safer, the exact location of the crosswalk, or maybe have to modify, something with a retention pond or whatever, we may be tweaking this, and we'll be coming back to you. So we're going to present the same information to the Livable Roadways Committee. We're going to the neighborhood associations in the area, and then we will be making revisions and working with the designers again. And then we're going to start round 2 meetings in December. So we're hoping to come back to you guys again in January with some additional updates. And it will be, like I said, it's an iterative process. So this is just the very beginning concepts. And this will be going on for a while, but we wanted to bring it to you and get it in front of you so you guys could start digesting it and giving us comments and any suggestions. And I wanted to make sure that Mark went first because I wanted you to kind of see that the big picture. It's not just the trail, but the aesthetics that go with all the underpasses and the MSE walls and the potential for public art and everything. So it's not just a ride along the interstate. It is, You know, it can be something that's an attractive travel route. And that's all.
Okay, Ms. Ellis, quick question. Could you emphasize the fact that the connector is up to Cypress is going to also reach out further, that's going out to the Cypress Point Park, will also connect to the U-Path and eventually, and then through the U-Path up to the Courtney Campbell?
Yeah, that's correct, Jim. As can go back to the Rio area, the next slide. I think you were away from your desk when we first started. Yeah, so this is the Rio part. So at the top up there at Kennedy, right underneath the word Kennedy is where the trail comes in from the Howard Franklin Bridge. So that's that purple line is the trail. So that will come in, and then you can either take it north up to Cypress Point Park. And as you were saying, that 10-foot sidewalk goes out and it goes to the U-Path, goes across Courtney Campbell and everything else. So we're making that connection. Or you can come south through there, and that takes you to the signalized intersection of Kennedy and Hoover. And for anybody who lives in South Tampa, most people come out in this area. This is where you go back through Beach Park and ride back through that way. That's how I usually ride through. But it's kind of, so it takes you there. But there's also sidewalk that goes over to the West Shore Plaza in that area also. But this is the limits. What you're seeing in purple is what the DOT is proposing to construct.
Okay. Yeah, I just when you were talking about it earlier in the presentation, you didn't mention the U-Path, and I thought that's something you really want to bring out in your discussion because of its interconnectivity.
Oh, yeah, that makes good sense. Thank you.
Other comments?
Yeah, this is Tim Horst. I've got a question. So that side path there that's going along Rio, that's going to make the connection to Cypress, is the goal to make that 10 feet wide? And also, is the DOT going to be purchasing right away on there, since I know it's really constrained as is?
Where was it that you were asking about?
Yeah, so that connection basically from Executive on Rio Street the whole way up to Cypress Avenue, that would be the connection to Cypress Point Park.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There is a small amount of right-of-way that's required through there.
Okay, that's what I figured last session.
All right. I don't know if there are any other questions, but I did want to acknowledge the arrival of our chair, Jonathan Forbes.
I put a question in the chat box.
Oh.
I might have missed it, but how wide are the proposed sidewalks or side paths and multi-use paths going to be along this?
So this is a work in progress, as I was saying, and we have to work with the designers and everything. So it depends upon the location. And it could change, but right now the goal is, if it's a trail, for it to be 12 feet wide. This particular area right here leading up to Cypress, is that little piece that we're on, is 10 feet right now as it's drawn. So going through the underpass area, like if you want to go to the slide before that, right now going through the interchange at Rio, the area that's right underneath the underpass, I mean, we've got it drawn as 16 feet right now, but you can see it's huge. So we have some flexibility right underneath the interchange. It really, so like I said, it really just depends. In some cases, like where we're extending it north to try and to tie into a sidewalk, we may be tapering from, you know, a 12-foot trail to a 6-foot sidewalk. So we're going to do a taper, and we're not going to just, you know, truncate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We should have more details on the exact locations of widths and in round 2 when we come back to you in January.
Great. Well, if there are no other questions on that part, we can move on to the Safe Trip presentation.
Thank you, Wade. I am Margaret Kubelins, and I am the Safe Trip program manager or engineer. Sorry about that. It's been a long day. So it's really exciting to see what has already been transpired. I've actually never seen some of these elements of what is happening within the West Shore area that were just presented. And I'm very excited about it, and you'll see why, because it does play a part of Safe Trip. So we go to the next slide, please. I don't think I need to tell everyone, but remind you that the governor back in the fall announced that we received $1.4 billion to reconstruct the West Shore interchange, which includes from the Howard Franklin Bridge east over to the Hillsborough River, and then on up State Road 60 up to the veterans. Next, please. Why Safe Trip? So Safe Trip is the transportation management plan for the entire area for while we're under construction. And that's my responsibility, is to help put all the elements possible together in order to help people move through and all around West Shore while we're under construction. We have significant bottlenecks there already. So how are we going to help smooth those out is what we're looking at and working on. We have goals that are consistent with the overall TV Next project. And it's going to take a lot of balance and travel demand. And you'll see as we move forward through this process that one of the elements that's going to be key is for us to provide a wide variety of quality transportation choices for everyone that lives in the area or who's traveling through there. Next, please. Safe Trip, as I mentioned, is a transportation management plan. And safe, meaning that we want to make sure that it's safe. I'm a Vision Zero advocate and understand that whenever we have crashes, we accept the fact that there will be the people running into each other. But when that happens, we want to make sure that we can provide the best conditions to heighten the probability that everyone that's involved in a crash, they'll either walk away from it or they'll be able to fully heal. With that in mind, we are looking at TRIP. The TRIP portion of this stands for traffic management, regional demand management, our innovation pieces, as well as public engagement. And let me talk through some more details of each of those. Next, please. First of all, of course, as you approach any kind of program, you want to make sure that you have a vision, that you can back check yourself on all the decisions that you make. So we've committed in our vision for this is to make sure that it's well planned. We maximize on innovation, which has a lot to do with technology and predictive analytics and pushing real-time data out to travelers, no matter what mode they choose to use. We are focusing and establishing our performance metrics on safety and then reliability. So reliability meaning that if it takes you previously, let's say for now, it takes you about 20 minutes to get to the airport, that once we go into construction, it's reasonable to anticipate it might take you 30 minutes. but we want it to be consistently 30 minutes. Or if you're going to travel during a peak hour, maybe it's going to be 40. But at least you can predict reasonably what it's going to take for you to get there. As I mentioned, quality transportation choices. That's what's going to give the quality of life to everyone that actually travels through the region. Strategic innovation, that is the technology component, and then proactive communication. TB Next is what it is today because we had a previous project and it really brought in a lot of conversation in a very difficult way. But from my perspective, I'm new to the DOT. I've only been here for about 1.5 years, but I see that the benefit is we have a much better project than we could possibly have had because of the advocacy and the outcry that was presented. The most important part of that, though, is that we heard you, and that we have a district secretary that's very committed to having an open process and a back and forth communication to get the best product, the best project underway, and then for us to live with and have it facilitate good mobility through the region for decades to come. Next, please. So we took Safe Trip, we've established goals, we have our, we call these elements, so our 4 elements, and then we've been establishing goals, and we are like 95% there, but we're trying to make sure that we choose our words properly, like deploy instrumentation and build operational capacity throughout the network in advance of construction. So that means that we're trying to get some early starts in place where we predict that we may have some challenges. We're using data that we are, information that comes to us on, unfortunately, a daily or weekly basis whenever there's an incident, say on the Howard Franklin Bridge. That gives us data to show, okay, so if there's an incident there, where does the traffic divert throughout this region just naturally? So we aren't just using computer models to tell us where traffic's going to go. We're actually using real-time data because we're so data rich now. Regional demand management, we're not just focusing on, well, not just, okay, so that's very robust. We are focusing on transit. We're also looking at bicycle facilities and looking at how everything is interconnected. I was very excited to see the presentation earlier because Alex Henry knows I have been on the phone. I'm like, okay, where's the network for bicycles? Where's the network for bicycles? Because in my vision, we would have a robust quality bicycle network in place before we put a shovel in the ground. So people have that as a choice. And we are in, anyway, let me keep moving forward over into freight is another that we are distinctly, we're paying attention to the freight carriers either passing through. As you know, that we have the airport to the north of us, and also deliveries. That's going to be really important. So we're being very comprehensive in our evaluation. Under innovation, we have our smart work zones, and we have a little bit more detail of that coming soon, or coming later in the presentation. But we have a situation with work zone data exchange. So that's a regional platform where anytime there is a construction zone coming on board, we use FDOT Tampa Bay right now as a way for us to disseminate information, or Florida 511. But what we have found is that sometimes we have situations where the city might close a road. And I did have something about 6 months ago where we had to close 275 in the northbound direction, just east or just north on 275, I guess, east of Kennedy, and they needed to close down the interstate in order to take down one of the dynamic message signs over the interstate. You can't do that under traffic. So we had worked with the city to address having a detour in place. So we modified signal timings, and they were in working with us on that. And that first night that we had to close the interstate, lo and behold, the city closed Cypress. And so that was a perfect opportunity for us to realize that, oh gosh, we really need to we need to have a comprehensive place for us to share information across all the agencies within the area. We also have mobility as a service, and that's more like just having the app. So it's real time. Public engagement, it does start with that real time information, or that's kind of the end product, excuse me. But it also, the public engagement, we already have a robust group of small groups, focus groups, and then broader picture that we've had engaged with, and multiple agencies as well. Next, please. So here's an example in the traffic management. I just hung up the phone right before this meeting, where we were talking about making sure that the local area network has the instrumentation so we can monitor and optimize the not just the flow of traffic, but also the movement of people throughout this network. On this map, you see where 275 is highlighted in yellow, but then you can see the robust network that we have. And we want to, and we are going to need to take advantage of that so people can disperse through these other major routes through while we're under construction, because there could be an event that happens, an event as in an incident or crash or somewhere within a construction zone. And then how are people going to be able to continue to get through the area? Also in the traffic management area, I want you to understand that with the instrumentation, we're modernizing the traffic signal equipment, as well as our ability to monitor. And an area that makes this really important is when it comes to signal timing, we've already instituted across the region, and you may not even realize this, that we're using lower cycle lengths during the off-peak periods. And what that does is it allows the pedestrians to cross the street more frequently on an hourly basis. So we're looking for ways to already help manage the mobility of pedestrians and cyclists throughout the region. We also are using signal timing to manage speed. So with the lower cycle lengths, we're also able to help control the speed on some of these major roads. Next, please. So under the regional demand management, where we are right now is we're looking at the origin destinations. We're getting the data put together to understand in more detail from the larger picture, like where do we need to have better, more accessible transit projects? You know, which routes are going to be used the most, and then how can we leverage that? And we are having the conversation as well in regard to the first mile, last mile concepts, of course, in planning. For the first mile, not just having a park and ride at that first mile for vehicles, but we're also looking at, okay, do we have quality bicycle facilities or bike parking? And how do we manage that as well? So we're trying to address that multimodal at both ends of the project. We also are looking at the origin destination with a 3-mile radius with the concept and getting in a little bit more closer network. We are evaluating that, looking for bicycle trips. A 3-mile radius is a reasonable bicycle trip for a commuter. We have what we just saw has a lot about the network along 275, but what about people that are possibly living in Soho and are going to be working in West Shore? You know, people that are moving to the area every single day. So we are taking a look at that as well. We also want to incorporate micro-mobility, and then something like the downtowner. Could we replicate some kind of shuttle service like that for West Shore during construction? All about reducing those personal vehicle trips. Next, please. So in smart work zones, there's 2 things that we want to focus in on smart work zones. So a smart work zone, and in regard to the Federal Highway Administration, it needs to be portable, it needs to be reliable, it has to be real time and automated. So this is technology that exists, it's just being applied in a different way. The speed harmonization, The major goal associated with speed harmonization is to reduce the number of crashes that we may have amongst vehicles that pass through a speed zone, which is really important. I mean, a work zone, which is really important if there's a traffic shift. Here is another one, is called the zipper merge. This is going to require a lot of public outreach and a lot of public education. And we've already had those conversations of how can we get ahead of this. Wade, could you try to see if we can get the zipper merge PSA up? Uh-oh, when we tried it, we had it. I don't hear it. Wade, should I do a voiceover, or are you gonna try it again? I'm looking for the button.
This is Chris. I'm looking at this. I'm not totally sure why there's no audio. There should be. Wade, you could turn the captions on as a stopgap.
I'm sorry, Chris. Was that you?
The captions, you could turn closed captioning on as a stopgap since the audio doesn't seem to be working. It's the CC button right there, next to the gear, or that.
Do you want to start? Yeah. Here, I was going to do the voiceover. Is everyone reading fast enough, or do you want me to explain it?
Looks good to me.
Okay. Okay, well, that gives you an idea of how it works, and you may just on your own time go to YouTube and look that up, zipper merge or late merge. It's proven a very effective way in order to help manage the use of lanes. We also expect that people, once they see this being advertised through different projects, they're gonna begin to apply it in multiple locations just naturally. So it'll be interesting to see how it changes driver behavior once they learn how it's used. We expect that it's going to be similar to when we started using a flashing yellow arrow. It was very intuitive to people. Next slide, please. So public engagement. We already have the Florida 511. That is an app that you can use, but a lot of people don't realize that Waze pulls data from the Florida 511 system, and that they use that to help understand what the traffic conditions are out on the road. They use what's called probe data as well. So your smartphone is a ping also, but this is another data source that they use, and we're providing that to them. We also use our the Tampa Bay f.tampabay.com is another resource where we have a lot of information out there. We are looking for ways of how we communicate with the public, and during this process, we'll continue to be asking for feedback to make sure that we're meeting people basically where they are as much as we can. Next, please. We have already had a very robust opportunity to do the public engagement, and we continue to provide updates to a variety of communities. Obviously, now that we've gone into virtual formats, it actually has provided us opportunity to meet more and more people as well. As soon as we can, we'll be face to face, but we'll make do with what we have so far. Next, please. We also have a community action task force, and here is just a representation of all the members that we have. So those other agencies and organizations also have a place at the table. This is a little bit more of the professional organization level. So we are getting a lot of information from various entities, and we are having a lot of conversations with them, and including like Florida Trucking. We need to make sure that we're addressing all the issues that could possibly be coming up. Next, please. We've also gone through a series of lessons learned. We've already met with District 5 over in Orlando for I-4 Ultimate, and we've been receiving all kinds of information from them of what works and what didn't. We already know how we need to structure the contract to make the contractors a part of this process. That came out of the I-4. We've met with Virginia Department of Transportation on I-66 and outside the Beltway, and we've learned from them as well. And then Missouri DOT, we've listened for them. They had a circle, so one of the concepts that they reiterated to us, we were already on this track, but they drew a circle around the area of influence of having their interstate system under construction. They actually were able to build theirs with a closed interstate, which we won't be doing. Ours will be under traffic. However, we are taking the practice of trying to either advance or delay projects relative to when we know we're going to be under construction. And a matter of fact, this morning we were in the CAC meeting, and Thea had done a presentation on the Selman Expressway extension, and we were looking at what was going on with Gandy. And so now we're already scheduling a meeting to follow up with them to understand what were the challenges that they have been facing during construction of the Selman Expressway extension. We also have another lessons learned with Wisconsin DOT coming up. Next, please. So here's our overall schedule. As you know, that we're in Q3 of the year, I think, yes, of 2020. So we are in the midst of developing our Safe Trip plan. And we are in the process of putting just about anything and everything on the table right now of any kind of strategy. We recognize that the Department of Transportation is not going to be able to fund absolutely everything. But one of the reasons why we're having conversations with all these other organizations and agencies is that there may be an opportunity that maybe they can do a grant and then they can bring a small element. Like I mentioned, the first mile, last mile, there may be an opportunity that if we provide bike parking up at a park and ride, and then maybe they can reach out and get some funding in order to build a better bicycle network to get more people to have that as an opportunity for the way they could travel to the area. We expect to have our plan done in the spring of next year. And during this whole process, we will continue to push to have early project deployment. We're very interested in getting things on the ground before we go to construction. You'll note that on the very bottom line, we show update Safe Trip. So we're going to pause for about 6 months, but then we're going to start reevaluating. The Safe Trip plan will be a living document, and it's going to have shifts and changes throughout the duration of construction. And you see where construction is going to start in 2024. It's about shovels in the ground, and we'll be under construction probably for about 6 years. Next slide, please, which I think may be the end. Yes. So I'm be more than happy. I know I put a lot of information to you, but I'd like to open it up for questions if anyone has any. Nope. We'll get that bicycle network construction. Actually, in that, I know there's some early starts, but Alex Henry is probably really grateful that I had the opportunity to listen to what is already a part of TB Next. But I'm interested. I'd love to see some of those projects already built before we go under construction. And I don't know if we can make that happen, but we'll see what we can do. Okay, well, thank you. And I can come back at any time.
Thank you, Margaret.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm up next. So if there are no questions for DOT, let me get my presentation up. This is just a brief update on some of the process and some of the changes that have been made this year. As you all may remember, regional trails were being handled under the leadership of TBARTA, but as they became more of a transit-oriented agency and gave up that larger transportation role, the West Central Florida Chairs Coordinating Committee has been formed to, well, reformed, I should say. It was already in existence to coordinate that. The Chairs Coordinating Committee, Multi-Use Trails Committee, which is largely a staff committee, manages the trail priorities there. And then the TMA, the Transportation Management Area, which is a both geographical subdivision, but also a different group of counties from the larger Chairs Coordinating Committee. The TMA is made up of Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas. So that's basically the Tri-County. Just to give you a couple of the new additions that went onto that list in District 7 in 2020. This is the State Road 60 Adamo Drive corridor. This is a part, or at least connects to the South Coast Greenway and Gulf Coast Trail. So where the path ends at 22nd Street, you would be able to go south or west and south and hook up with the Selman Greenway, and same thing at the east end of this, where you would eventually be able to go over to Maydell Drive and then down across the Palm River. The other District 7 addition was a crossing of State Road 54 at Starkey Boulevard. This is where the trail segment was just completed between Pasco and Pinellas, and it's right basically at the very northwest corner of Hillsborough as well. So this is something that eventually, you know, the Upper Tampa Bay Trail connecting to the Gulf Coast Trail, it becomes part of that larger network. District 1 had several new additions, 3 in Polk County and 2 in Manatee and Sarasota. They were largely just redoing their priorities. They had a shorter list than we did to begin with, so I would not take the addition of 6 for them versus 2 for us to mean anything in particular. But these are just the examples: the Lake Hunter Trail, the Fort Fraser Trail Extension, the Panther Point Connector, the Palmetto Trail Network, which would be the city of Palmetto, which is a really important connection as we try to bring the Gulf Coast Trail down through there and then up into Hillsborough. And then the Ringling Bikeway, which is the urban park through the city of Sarasota as well. And those are the major regional additions. I did just want to go through for the rest of the presentation. What you'll see is all of the trail projects that we have funded for one stage or another for construction at first, and then I'll get into the other stages. But the Howard Franklin Bridge replacement, which is 2020 to 2023. The Selman Greenway Trailhead, which is just south of where we were looking before at Adamo Drive and 17th to 19th Street. So just to the west of where we were looking before at that Adamo project. The West River Greenway, which is the west portion of the Riverwalk. This is up near North Boulevard where Stewart, the middle school, I believe is. Next, the Green Artery Segment E, which is currently in design and moving forward. That is the segment just west of Florida Avenue, moving south along the north side of the Hillsborough River. And then the Green Spine cycle tracks, all segments are funded and construction will be going now through 2024. Continuing on, Morris Bridge Road from Fowler to Fletcher is set for construction in 2021, next year. And then the next one, State Road 60 from Rocky Point Drive to Rocky Point Creek. This is a project that this committee moved forward. I'm not sure if Holly Simmons is on, but she lives in that neighborhood, and this was one that she was very passionate about because it's that north side of the causeway, that connection from Rocky Point Drive to the east. The South Coast Greenway, the Shell Point to 19th Avenue segment is moving forward very soon. The Maydell Bridge replacement, construction is set to run through 2022. And then Van Dyke Road, which we've talked about, which is an important connection in northern Hillsborough County, which will have a side path along with it. Construction is 2020 until 2022 as well. Just another couple that are moving forward in the next few years for design or engineering. The Big Bend Road overpass, which is also part of the Gulf Coast Trail / South Coast Greenway. The Bypass Canal Trail, which is undergoing PD&E, which will help put that into segments that we can move forward into construction phases. And then the South Coast Greenway Phase 3 is also moving forward in design phase. Just a couple of other regional trails issues that will be coming up. Our USF Velo starts in the next couple of weeks, late August. Her name is Fatima, and her main project will be the Tri-County Interactive Map, which I'll be, and I actually have the date of this meeting. It's actually September 15th, which is a Tuesday, and I believe I've sent that to you all. But we will be discussing that Tri-County map. It is meant to be an interactive, user-focused map. And we will be working with our partners in Pasco and Pinellas to move that forward. So that's all I have. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. Okay, well, hearing none, thank you all, and we can move on. Mr. Rank, I don't know if you wanted to address this first item. We did get an update from, based on Mr. Lamarca's original request for several locations to receive maintenance. There were positive responses in a few of those. And I know they're working on some of the rest of them. Richard, if you want to address that, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a maintenance issue, but those things that were If I recall, there were several street maintenance issues, debris on the road, and he mentioned 4 or 5 locations. So that got forwarded to the maintenance people, and they've been addressing them along the way. Some of them, I believe, actually require manual maintenance because they fall behind some delineators. I'm sure the city of Tampa has that same issue. So it's, in the era of COVID-19, maintenance is doing the best they can as quickly as they can to address all, maintenance issues, maintenance requests that come in. So those were brought forward to them and are being addressed. I think most of them have.
Thank you, Richard. The only other items I had, which I guess I've addressed, are the Tri-County BPAC, which will be a virtual meeting on September 15th. I believe it's at 4 p.m. And then the Tri-County Interactive Trail Map, which we've also discussed, but be thinking about that because that's a great opportunity to connect with our folks. And as we continue to get more connections, particularly with the Howard Franklin Bridge and other things, I think it'll be even more important. One last point about Mr. Lamarca's request. The only open maintenance issue is Big Bend Road, as it requires lane closures. And Mr. Lamarca did have a comment on the trails presentation, which was that the bypass canal was approved for crushed shell 20 years ago. But the Big Bend Road requires lane closures to accommodate some of the maintenance requests. So that has not happened yet. But I don't know if there's any other old and new business, but I will leave it to you if there is.
Hey, Wade, this is Linda Crescentini. Can you hear me?
Yes, Linda.
Hey, I just wanted to share some good news that we received this week. Hopefully Jim finds this as good as we do. Hart was awarded a bus and bus facilities grant for 4 new electric vehicles.
Oh, great.
So, isn't that good? I thought you would like that. So we just found out this week, and I'll update everyone once we move ahead with that. But yeah, we were awarded just under $3 million, and we have a $3 million match. TECO was actually our partner, and they're going to contribute. So Hart's responsible for half, and TECO's going to match our half. So it's a partnership with TECO Electric, as well as ourselves and FTA. So that's pretty exciting for us.
This is Jim Shark. Will that include charging stations?
Yes. So we'll have 4 charging stations at the 21st Avenue, and we're looking at the ability to have an inline charging capabilities at probably MTC, since most of our buses go through MTC in order to serve. That's what our biggest transit center. So, but we have not nailed that down yet. We're early in the discovery process on that.
Great news, though, all up and down.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Mr. Chair, I don't know if you have any more old or new business. I'm not seeing any in the questions or panelists, but let me see if I can unmute you, Mr. Forbes. It says you're unmuted, but I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. Hello, Sally. I can see you.
Meeting him as well, and could not get it to work. Jonathan, you could try calling in on your mobile. That might, or your home phone if you have one.
Who are you talking?
Sally, you looked like you were waving. Can you Speak now, sorry.
Okay, I wanted to mention that we're planning a Hillsborough Greenways Committee virtual committee meeting on Tuesday, the 8th of September, and Rich Rank will be sending out the notices. We're in the process of planning. We haven't had any meetings since we were trying to meet quarterly, so that's a heads up if any of you are interested. And we may want to hear some of what you just presented, Wade, about the materials. That's all.
And I'd be happy to bring this to them just as an update of where things are. Okay, just let me know.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know if there's any more old or new business. Mr. Shirk or Mr. Forbes, if
I have nothing further.
all right. Well, I apologize that Jonathan is having some issues being heard, but if anybody would like to make a motion to adjourn, I can move that forward.
I move we adjourn. Any opposition? I take that we're adjourned.
Thank you, Jim, Jonathan, and everybody else. Talk to you soon.